Welcome to Zoe Stories. Sister's Magical Dress. My name's Ethan, and up until last month, I thought I understood who I was. I had a quiet life. Stable, predictable, boring even. I worked as a freelance graphic designer from my apartment, spent most nights watching movies with my girlfriend Isabella, and occasionally visited my family. My sister, Clara, was the opposite of me. Bold, creative, and impossible to ignore. She had this wild imagination, always chasing art and mysticism, collecting old things that, as she said, held energy. When she left for a year-long art residency in Paris, she told me to keep an eye on her house. I didn't think twice about it. It was just family duty: water the plants, dust the furniture, feed her cat. Simple. But I didn't know her house would soon turn into the stage for something I could never have imagined. The first night I stayed there, I remember walking into her old bedroom. Everything was untouched, her vanity cluttered with perfume bottles, brushes, and silk scarves. The air smelled faintly of lavender and something older, something floral but strange. And then, in the corner of the room, I saw it, a mannequin draped with a shimmering dress. It wasn't like any dress I'd seen before. The fabric looked alive under the dim light, soft pink and silver hues shifting like water. Something about it pulled me closer. The tag still hung loosely at the collar, but the handwriting wasn't a label. It was a message. To whoever wears this, may you see your truest self. I laughed softly. Typical Clara. Probably one of her artistic experiments, I thought. But as my hand brushed against the fabric, a wave of warmth ran through my fingers. Not static, not temperature, but a deep pulse, like the dress was breathing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The thought of the dress wouldn't leave my mind. It was ridiculous. I wasn't into that kind of thing, not anymore. Back in high school, I'd once dressed up as a girl for a play, and for a brief moment, I remembered how natural it had felt, how the makeup, the softness, the movement had stirred something confusing inside me. But I had buried that part years ago. And yet the memory was alive again. The next morning, I told Isabella about the dress over breakfast. She laughed it off. "Sounds like something your sister would do," she said. "You better not try it on, or she'll hex you or something." Her tone was teasing, but something in her eyes lingered, a mix of curiosity and concern. That evening, as I worked on a client's logo design, the sound of the rain hitting the windows grew louder. The house felt colder. The mannequin stood in the corner of the room, its shape faintly visible under the flickering light. I tried to ignore it, but my eyes kept drifting back to the dress. It shimmered subtly, almost like it was moving. By midnight, I finally gave in. I stood in front of it, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. My hands trembled as I lifted the dress off the mannequin. The fabric was lighter than I expected, soft as mist, but when I held it, it glowed faintly against my skin. I looked at myself in the mirror. "This is stupid," I whispered. "It's just fabric." But deep down, I wanted to see. I slipped out of my t-shirt, unbuttoned my jeans, and slowly stepped into the dress. The moment it touched my skin, a chill ran up my spine. The air around me seemed to hum. I pulled the zipper up, feeling the material tighten around my chest and waist, perfectly fitted, as if it had been made for me. Then the lights flickered. For a moment, everything was silent. Then I saw it, my reflection. My jawline looked softer, my hair seemed longer, and my posture changed. My heart was racing, my breath shallow. I blinked hard, and the image snapped back. Me, just me, but shaken. I yanked the zipper down and pulled the dress off, gasping. I threw it on the bed, my hands shaking. What the hell was that? I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch, wide awake, staring at the faint glow coming from under the bedroom door. The next morning, I went back to my apartment, tried to forget it ever happened. But I couldn't. Every time Isabella spoke, her words seemed distant. Every reflection, every window, I caught glimpses, softer eyes, a gentler face. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. But the feeling the dress gave me, that strange sense of rightness, it haunted me. By the third night, I found myself back at Clara's house. This time, I didn't tell anyone. Not even Isabella. The house was silent. The air smelled of rain and lavender again. The dress was waiting, as if it knew I'd return. I ran my fingers over it once more. The same warmth, the same pulse. I whispered to the empty room. Just once more, and then I'll stop. As I slipped it on again, the lights dimmed, and this time, the reflection didn't change back. The world felt lighter when I opened my eyes. The air shimmered faintly, and for a brief, terrifying second, I didn't recognize the person staring back at me in the mirror. The reflection wasn't entirely foreign. It was me, but softer. My jawline, my shoulders, my expression, everything seemed subtly altered, as though someone had gently edited my image. The dress shimmered faintly against the early morning light seeping through the curtains, the silver threads glinting like frost. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I reached for the zipper, but it wouldn't move. Come on, come on. I pulled harder, but the zipper wouldn't budge. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered and I felt it. A surge of warmth rushed through my body, flowing from the fabric into my skin. My breath caught as I felt my body subtly shift beneath the material, hips tightening, waist narrowing, skin tingling like 1,000 whispers. I stumbled backward, catching my reflection again. My hands trembled as they brushed against my arms. The skin felt impossibly smooth. What's happening to me? The room was silent except for the faint hum coming from the dress. My fingers finally managed to pull the zipper down, and as the dress slipped from my shoulders, the glow dimmed. My reflection flickered, and just like that, I looked normal again. I stood there for several minutes, staring at myself. My mind was chaos. Logic screamed leave, but curiosity whispered stay. When my phone buzzed, I nearly jumped. Isabella. Hey babe, you at your sister's again? Me? Yeah, just checking on the cat. Isabella. Don't let the magic dress get you. I stared at the message longer than I should have. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, wanting to confess everything. But how could I? How could I explain that her boyfriend felt different, and it wasn't all fear? Some part of me, deep down, had liked it. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about how it had felt. The tightness of the waistline, the cool silk brushing against my skin, the strange harmony I'd felt when the dress hugged my body perfectly. I tried to distract myself, worked on a new logo design for a client, cleaned the living room, even tried to call Isabella. But the pull wouldn't stop. By 11 p.m., I was standing in front of the closet again. The dress hung there quietly, motionless, waiting. I shouldn't, I whispered. But the silence around me said otherwise. The moment I touched the fabric, warmth spread through my fingertips again. This time I didn't fight it. I slipped into the dress slowly, almost reverently. The material felt alive beneath my palms. As the zipper climbed my back, a low hum filled the air, like soft music, distant and haunting. My breath hitched. The mirror shimmered again, faint ripples spreading across its surface. My reflection blinked after I did. And then it smiled. Not a real smile, not mine. A reflection smile. Delicate. Feminine. Playful. You're back, the reflection whispered. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. My mouth went dry. Who are you? The voice didn't come from the room. It came from inside, from the reflection, from the dress, from within me. You wanted to see, the reflection whispered again. Now you do. The lights flickered violently, and for a split second, the reflection changed, showing a young woman standing where I was. She looked familiar. Her eyes were mine, but her expression was different, confident, graceful, radiant. And then the light snapped off. When it came back, the reflection was normal again. I ripped the dress off and tossed it onto the bed, panting. My heart was racing. I didn't know what to believe anymore. But even as fear clawed at me, one thought kept repeating in my head. She was beautiful. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it had all been in my head. Maybe I'd just been tired. Maybe stress was playing tricks on me. But when I looked at my phone, there was a new message. Unknown number. You look better in pink. I froze. My stomach dropped. No one had seen me. The curtains had been drawn, the door locked. How could anyone? I looked back toward the bedroom door. It was ajar. The dress was gone. My pulse quickened. I rushed inside, but the mannequin was bare. The shimmering fabric, the glow, everything gone. Clara, I whispered. I didn't know who else to call, but she didn't pick up. Outside, the rain began again. Steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. As I stood in the doorway, the faint scent of lavender drifted through the room again. And then I heard it, a whisper. Faint, melodic. Coming from the closet. Try me again. I froze. The closet door slowly creaked open, and there it was. The dress, neatly hung, glowing faintly in the shadows. And this time, I couldn't resist. The storm outside hadn't stopped for 2 days. Each night, the sound of rain against the windows lulled the city into silence, but inside Clara's house, the quiet was alive, breathing, watching, waiting. I hadn't told Isabella anything. She thought I was just too focused on work. In truth, I hadn't left my sister's house for almost 48 hours. Every time I tried, I found myself drawn back to the bedroom, back to the dress. It now hung in the closet like a secret I couldn't unlearn, shimmering faintly in the dim light, as if whispering my name. I told myself I was just going to look, just for a second, but my hands had a mind of their own. When I touched the dress again, it felt warmer than before. The pulse beneath the fabric was stronger, alive. I pressed it against my cheek, and the warmth spread across my face like a blush. My reflection in the mirror behind me shifted slightly, almost like it leaned closer to watch. You keep coming back, a voice murmured softly. I spun around. No one. Just the rain and the faint hum of the ceiling fan. My chest tightened. I turned back, toward the mirror. Who's there? I whispered. The reflection shimmered. Slowly it began to move, not mimicking me this time, but acting independently. The figure in the mirror tilted her head, her long hair cascading over her shoulder, and smiled. You know who I am, she said. I shook my head violently. No. This isn't real. You're not real. The reflection's eyes softened. You wore the dress. You brought me back. My stomach twisted. Brought you back. She nodded once, gracefully. Clara made me, but she never wore me. You did. I stumbled backward, hitting the edge of the bed. You're saying you're part of the dress? Her smile deepened, a haunting blend of sweetness and sorrow. I am the dress. And you're my canvas. The air around me grew thick. The faint lavender scent intensified, mixing with something metallic, sharp and dizzying. I tried to look away, but my reflection held my gaze. Why me? I asked, my voice cracking. Because you looked at me the way she never did. Because when you touched me, you wanted to understand. Her words pierced something inside me. Deep down, beneath all the fear, she was right. I had wanted to understand. The way I'd felt in that dress, the freedom, the softness, the strange comfort, it was something I couldn't explain, but desperately craved again. You're scared, she said softly, but you don't want to stop. I swallowed hard. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've spent your life pretending. You hide your softness. You hide your truth. But with me, she stepped closer, her hands reaching out through the mirror's surface, light rippling around her fingers. You don't have to hide anymore. I froze as her fingertips brushed the edge of the glass, and this time, I felt it. The mirror wasn't cold anymore. It was warm. Real. The reflection leaned closer. Put me on again, Ethan. Let me show you what you really are. My heart hammered against my chest. Every rational thought screamed run. But the temptation, the need, was unbearable. I reached for the dress. The moment I slipped it over my shoulders, a wave of energy surged through me. The lights dimmed, the air shimmered, and my reflection shifted again, not instantly, but gradually, deliberately. My hair lengthened slightly. My lips softened, my shoulders pulled in. My movements, delicate, fluid, no longer my own. I felt both me and her moving together. Stop, I whispered, gasping for breath. Please stop. But the voice inside me, the one from the mirror, whispered instead. You don't want me to stop. And she was right. Every fiber of my being screamed with confusion and desire. My skin tingled where the dress hugged it, my heartbeat sinking with a faint hum of magic in the air. Then I felt something else, a faint tremor in my chest, a whisper brushing the inside of my mind. Images flashed, memories that weren't mine. A field of flowers, a woman laughing in the sunlight, a shattered mirror, Clara's voice screaming. I stumbled back, clutching my head. The images vanished as quickly as they'd come, leaving me gasping for air. What was that? I cried. The reflection smiled faintly. Pieces of me. And soon, pieces of you. I tore the dress off, trembling. The glow faded. The mirror's surface stilled. The house was silent again. I backed away slowly, afraid to even look at the dress. But in the stillness, something shifted again, faint, deliberate. The closet door moved on its own, creaking open just enough for me to see the shimmer inside. And then a whisper, soft as silk. You can't run from what you are. That night, I drove back to my apartment, trying to convince myself to forget everything. But when I walked into the living room, my heart stopped. The dress, Clara's magical dress, was draped neatly across my couch. And taped to it was a note, written in my sister's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means she's awake. When I saw that note taped to the dress, the world went silent. If you're reading this, it means she's awake. Those words looped through my head until they lost meaning. Who is she? The voice in the mirror? The thing inside the dress? I stared at the soft shimmer of the fabric as though it might answer me. But it didn't move. It just lay there, beautiful, delicate, and terrifying. I dialed Clara's number again, and again it went to voicemail. Clara, it's me. I found your note. You have to call me back. Please. My voice cracked on the last word. I hated how desperate it sounded. I put the dress in a storage box and shoved it deep into my closet. Then I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe, trying to remember what normal felt like. But normal didn't exist anymore. Even in the dark, I could sense it. A faint hum beneath the walls, the same soft pulse that came from the fabric. The house wasn't quiet anymore. It was listening. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of her again. The reflection. She stood in front of the mirror, her back turned, brushing long silver hair that shimmered like moonlight. When she turned around, her eyes weren't her own this time. They were mine. You shouldn't have locked me away, she whispered. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. My heart pounded as I looked toward the closet. The box was still there, closed, but the air around it seemed to hum faintly, like static before a storm. I got up, opened the closet door, and stared at the box. You're not real, I said softly, almost like convincing myself. But something in me didn't believe it anymore. I stepped closer. My fingers hovered over the lid. The hum grew louder. And then knock, knock, knock. I froze. Someone was at the door. My heart jumped into my throat. At this hour? I rushed to the door, peering through the peephole. It was Isabella. I hadn't seen her in days. Her eyes were tired, her hair wet from the rain. When I opened the door, she smiled faintly. Hey, I thought you might be here. Her voice was soft, but her eyes searched mine, like she was trying to read me. You okay? She asked. You haven't answered my calls. I forced a smile. Yeah, just busy. Work. She looked past me into the apartment. Can I come in? I hesitated, just long enough for her to notice. What's going on, Ethan? Her tone changed, careful, probing. I stepped aside. Of course. She walked in slowly, her gaze scanning the room. I watched her eyes linger on the couch, on the faint shimmer of fabric that had fallen out of the closet box. Is that Clara's? My stomach twisted. I moved quickly, picking up the dress and tucking it away. Yeah, just something she left here. Nothing important. Isabella tilted her head. It looks different. Have you tried it on? Her question hit me like a slap. What? No, of course not. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You sure? The air thickened. My throat was dry. Why would I? Because you smell like her perfume, she interrupted softly. Lavender and silver. You hate that scent, remember? I froze. The silence stretched until I couldn't take it anymore. Isabella, I can explain. She stepped closer, her expression unreadable. I don't need an explanation, Ethan. I just need the truth. Her eyes flicked toward the closet. What's in there? Nothing. She took another step. Then open it. My heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to stop her, to protect her, or maybe to protect myself. Don't, I whispered. Please, just don't. But she reached for the handle anyway. The moment her fingers brushed the wood, a low hum filled the room. Deep, resonant, almost melodic. The lights dimmed. What the hell? Before she could finish, the closet door burst open. The dress flew out like it had a mind of its own, wrapping itself around my torso in a whirl of fabric and light. I screamed. The air burned, electric. Isabella stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror. Ethan. The dress tightened, glowing brighter. I could feel it, the magic threading through my veins, reshaping, rewriting, consuming. My body arched as the mirror across the room flickered to life. The reflection, her reflection, stood there again, smiling. You can't hide from me anymore, she whispered. My voice broke. Get it off me, please. Isabella rushed forward, trying to pull the fabric away, but it clung to me like liquid light. It won't let go, she cried. The reflection pressed her palm against the inside of the mirror. He doesn't want me to. My vision blurred. I didn't know where the reflection ended and where I began. My body trembled, voice fading into a whisper. Isabella. And then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor. The apartment was quiet again. Isabella was gone. The mirror across the room was cracked, and in the center of the glass, faintly visible beneath the web of fractures, was her smile. When I woke up, the world didn't look the same anymore. The air felt softer, tinted in pale gold. My apartment smelled faintly of perfume, lavender and silver, the scent Isabella had noticed. I sat up slowly, my head spinning. Every part of me ached, but when I looked down at my hands, my breath caught. They weren't quite my hands anymore. The fingers were slimmer, the nails faintly tinted with a pearly sheen. I blinked, shaking my head, telling myself it was a trick of the light. But when I touched my face, my skin felt smooth, different. The mirror across the room was cracked but glowing faintly. I approached it slowly, heart hammering. And there she was, not just a reflection but her, the woman from my dreams. Except this time, she was smiling warmly, almost lovingly. You're awake, she whispered. Her voice wasn't coming from my mind anymore. It echoed softly through the room, real and heavy. Who are you? I whispered. Her smile deepened. You already know. I shook my head. No. You're just a part of you, she said gently, interrupting me. The part you've been hiding for years. Her tone was calm, soothing, like she was talking to a scared child. Clara created me to protect you. But now, it's my turn to live. I stepped back, shaking. No, that's not true. Clara was experimenting. She didn't mean to. Her eyes flickered with sadness. You still think this is about her? You still think the dress chose wrong? She reached out toward the glass. No, Ethan. It chose perfectly. Before I could react, the mirror flared white. My reflection's hand pressed against the glass, and for the briefest moment, I felt her touch. Cool, electric, and impossibly real. The pain came next. It was like every nerve in my body caught fire. My reflection began to move independently, smiling, tilting her head, while I screamed and stumbled backward. Stop. Stop. But the voice that came out wasn't mine anymore. It was higher, softer. I ran to the bathroom mirror and froze. She was looking back. Same long hair, same delicate features, same haunted eyes. My body wasn't mine. The dress clung perfectly to my shape, flowing like liquid light. Every movement felt graceful, unnatural, as though invisible strings were pulling me to stand straighter, move lighter, breathe softer. "Please," I whispered, trembling. "I don't want this." The woman's voice echoed softly through my head this time, inside me. "Don't fight it. You've been pretending for too long." "Pretending to be what?" I choked. "Someone you're not." Her words cut through me like glass. Then, a faint knock echoed from the front door. I froze. "Isabella." Her voice called softly. "Ethan?" "It's me." "Open the door." Panic surged through me. My voice, my body, it wasn't right. If she saw me like this— "You don't have to hide," the voice whispered. "She'll understand." "No," I hissed. "She'll think I've lost my mind." The voice chuckled softly. "Maybe you already have." Another knock. Harder this time. "Ethan." "Please, I saw something. Just open up." I ran to the door and pressed my back against it, breathing fast. "Go away," I shouted. Silence. Then a soft reply, trembling. "Clara told me about the dress." My heart stopped. I turned toward the mirror. The woman inside smiled faintly. "See? She knows." The door creaked open. I didn't remember unlocking it. Isabella stepped in, eyes wide as they landed on me. "Oh my God." She dropped her umbrella. Her lips parted, but no words came. "Isabella, it's me," I said, but even to my own ears, it didn't sound right. My voice was soft, melodic. Her expression shifted from shock to horror. "What did you do?" "I didn't." I started, but the reflection whispered through me. "Tell her you've never felt more alive." And, against my will, I repeated it aloud. "I've never felt more alive." Isabella stepped back, shaking her head. "Ethan, this isn't you." "Isn't it?" I said, or maybe she said through me. The voice, the posture, the tilt of my head. None of it was mine. Tears filled Isabella's eyes. "Clara said this could happen. She said the dress doesn't just change how you look, it changes who you are." My chest tightened. "Help me. Please." She took a step closer, trembling. "We have to destroy it." The mirror's light flickered angrily. The reflection frowned. "Destroy me," she whispered. The room began to shake. The hum grew louder until it was a roar. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. "Get out!" I screamed. "Get out of me!" The reflection's voice thundered through my skull. "I am you." The lights burst, plunging the room into darkness. When the silence returned, I could feel her heartbeat, not mine, echoing inside my chest. My hands trembled. My breath was shallow. Isabella whispered, voice cracking. "Ethan, please tell me you're still in there." I looked up at her, but the words that came out weren't mine. They were hers. "Ethan's gone." The air in the apartment was still crackling with leftover energy. The lights had gone out completely, except for the soft glow coming from the cracked mirror. Isabella stood frozen near the doorway, trembling. I was still on my knees, the silk dress flowing around me like liquid moonlight. My breathing was ragged, and I could feel the presence inside me, calm, steady, confident, so unlike the panic twisting inside my real thoughts. "Ethan?" Isabella whispered again. My lips curved into a smile that wasn't mine. "He's resting," the other voice said through me. "You can call me Clara." Isabella's eyes widened. "No, that's impossible." The reflection in the mirror smirked. "You always underestimated me, Bella. You thought I could only create. You never believed I could live." Her tone, my tone, carried an unsettling mix of love and malice. "What did you do to him?" Isabella demanded. The reflection leaned forward, her eyes glinting. "I freed him. Don't you see? He was trapped, in his fears, in his self-hate. I gave him what he secretly wanted." I tried to scream, but my voice came out as a whisper buried beneath hers. "Don't listen to her." Isabella's eyes darted toward me. "Ethan." "Fight it." The mirror began to flicker, the woman inside shifting between me and the glowing form of Clara, her long golden hair floating as if underwater. You don't understand, the reflection said. I created this dress to reveal one's true self. Ethan was chosen because his heart called to it. Isabella shook her head, stepping back. You're lying. He never wanted this. Didn't he? Clara's voice was soft, almost pitying. He looked in the mirror more than you ever noticed. He dreamed of softness, of beauty, of being seen differently. He hated himself for it. So, I gave him what he needed, not what he asked for. Isabella's breathing hitched. She turned toward me, her eyes filled with tears. Ethan, please tell me that's not true. I wanted to speak, to tell her it wasn't, but my throat locked. The words inside me twisted into something else. Maybe she's right, I heard myself say. The moment I spoke, I saw Isabella's expression shatter. Her lips trembled, her eyes filled with disbelief. No, she whispered. No, Ethan. Don't let her win. But the woman in the mirror only smiled.
He's not losing, Bella.
He's becoming. The mirror's glow brightened until it illuminated the entire room. Isabella shielded her eyes, stumbling back toward the living room table, where something small and metallic caught her attention.
A key.
It was old and engraved with a name, Clara Voss. She picked it up, her hands trembling. Clara's key, she murmured. This must be what she meant. The reflection's smile vanished. Don't touch that. Why? Isabella snapped. Because it can stop you? The reflection's expression twisted. That key unlocks more than a door. It reveals truths you aren't ready to face. Isabella clenched her jaw. Then that's exactly what I need. She ran toward the small antique chest that Clara had left in the apartment, the one Ethan had ignored for weeks. The moment she touched it, the mirror cracked again with a sharp, violent sound. Inside the chest was a stack of letters, old, yellowed, written in Clara's elegant cursive. The top one was marked simply, for the one who wears the dress. Isabella unfolded it, her hands shaking as she read aloud. The dress is a vessel. It holds a fragment of me, my consciousness, my memories, my identity. Whoever wears it must be willing to surrender. If they resist, the bond will consume them. Her voice broke as she read the final lines. Only love can separate us. But if the heart wavers, I will live again. The room went silent. Then, from within me, Clara's laughter echoed. Love, she whispered. How poetic. But your love, Isabella, was never strong enough to save him. Isabella turned, tears streaming down her cheeks. You're wrong. She rushed toward me, grabbing my hands, and for a fleeting moment, I felt something. Her warmth. Her heartbeat. Ethan, she whispered, remember us. The night by the lake, your stupid jokes, the way you always burnt breakfast. Please, fight her. My vision blurred. The reflection wavered. For a split second, I saw myself again. Bella, I breathed. Yes, she cried, holding tighter. That's you. Hold on. But Clara's voice hissed through the mirror, sharp and cold. You think love can save him? Foolish girl. The reflection lunged forward, and the glass shattered. Shards flew through the air like pieces of frozen light. The room exploded in a blinding flash. When the glow faded, Isabella found herself alone. The mirror was gone, nothing but fragments on the floor. The dress lay empty across the tiles, silk rippling like a dying flame. And from somewhere deep within the apartment came a faint, lingering whisper. I'm still here. Isabella sank to her knees, clutching the dress to her chest, sobbing. Ethan, please come back. But only silence answered her. The faint scent of lavender filled the air, and the smallest shard of glass in the corner flickered once, showing a reflection that wasn't hers. It had been 3 days since Ethan vanished. 3 long, sleepless nights since Isabella found the shattered mirror and the empty dress lying cold on the floor, silk like skin, scent like memory. She hadn't left the apartment since. Every corner of the place still whispered his name. His toothbrush was still in the holder. His half-finished coffee sat on the counter, long turned to mold. And the dress, it wouldn't stop moving. Every night, She locked it in the closet, and every morning, she found it hanging by the window, swaying gently, as if invisible hands were holding it up to the light. At first, she told herself she was imagining it. But then, the whispering began. Bella, her name, soft as breath, drifting through the hallway. Sometimes from the bedroom, sometimes from the mirror shards she'd swept into a box, and sometimes from inside the dress. She'd wake up gasping, cold sweat clinging to her body, that same scent of lavender and silk wrapping around her like a ghost. She couldn't eat,
Couldn't think.
she just replayed his face, the look of terror, the plea in his eyes before the mirror consumed him.
Then one morning, everything changed.
When she entered the living room, the mirror shards were gone. Every single piece. In their place on the floor was a message written in lipstick. Let me out. Her heart nearly stopped. The lipstick was Ethan's favorite shade, the one Clara had left with the dress. No, no, it can't be you. But deep down she knew. She could feel him. Somewhere between the whispers and her heartbeat, Ethan was still there. That night, she made a choice. She placed the dress on the table, its shimmer dull under the flickering lamp. Her hands trembled as she unrolled Clara's final letter again. Only love can separate us. Her voice cracked. Then love will. She gathered candles, arranged them in a circle around the dress, and whispered Ethan's name like a prayer. The flame flickered once, then went out. When she looked up, the air shimmered, like heat over pavement, and the dress began to rise, floating gently off the table. The silk twisted midair, folding and reshaping itself until a faint silhouette appeared within it. A shape she knew, a shape she'd held. Ethan, she whispered. The dress turned toward her. The air pulsed, heavy and charged. Then she heard it, a voice, cracked but familiar. Bella, it hurts. Her knees gave out. Oh my God. Ethan, I'm here. She won't let me go, he said, his tone trembling between fear and longing. She says I belong to her now. The lights flickered violently. Shadows stretched across the walls, forming a second silhouette behind the dress, taller, stronger, unmistakably feminine.
Clara.
You can't take him, Isabella shouted. He's not yours. Clara's voice filled the room like thunder. He was never yours either. The flames of the candles bent inward, pulled toward the floating dress. Isabella shielded her face as wind howled through the apartment, knocking over books and picture frames. Through the chaos, she saw Ethan's reflection in the window, pale, trembling, his eyes pleading for help. You have to destroy it, he shouted.
Now.
She reached for the dress, but the silk snapped to life, wrapping around her wrist like a snake. It was cold, impossibly strong, and pulsing, as if alive. You think you can break me? Clara hissed. You think love is stronger than creation? The fabric tightened, pulling Isabella closer until her face was inches from the shimmering figure. He doesn't belong to you anymore, Clara whispered. He's me now. Then you'll have to kill me too, Isabella said through gritted teeth. The candles burst, filling the room with smoke and light. For one brief, breathtaking second, Ethan's face appeared in the glow, half his, half hers. He was crying. Bella, he said softly, I can't hold her much longer. Please finish it. Her shaking hands reached for the lighter fluid she'd set on the table. With tears streaming down her face, she poured it over the dress. Clara screamed, the sound slicing through the air like metal. The fabric fought her grip, twisting and writhing, but Isabella struck a match, and the flames erupted. The dress burned like it had been waiting for it, colors shifting from silver to crimson to black. The smell of lavender turned to smoke and ash. But in the firelight, Isabella saw something that made her chest seize. Ethan's silhouette fading inside the flames, his eyes soft, peaceful. You found me, he whispered. I love you, she sobbed. He smiled faintly. I know. And then he was gone. When the fire died, nothing remained but ashes and silence. The mirror shards that had disappeared were back on the floor, but now they reflected only her. Isabella sank to the ground, trembling, whispering his name again and again. But from one small shard, a faint voice murmured, "You freed me, but not her." She looked up, horrified. The reflection in the glass blinked and smiled. Isabella thought the fire had ended it. But she was wrong. The apartment was silent, eerily so. The charred remnants of the dress lay in a pile on the floor. She tried to calm herself, tried to believe that Ethan was truly free. But the shadows in the corners moved differently now. They didn't stretch naturally. They watched. When she went to check the mirror shards, her reflection didn't match her movements perfectly. One hand would lag behind, one eye would blink just a fraction too late. "What?" she whispered. The smallest shard, the one on the coffee table, trembled. Then, faintly, a whisper. "Bella." Her blood ran cold. She spun around. No one. The apartment was empty. "Ethan," she called. Nothing. The whisper came again, louder. Closer. "I'm inside you." Isabella's breath caught in her throat. The words weren't in her head. They came from her chest, her throat, as if someone else shared her body. "No, not possible," she gasped. The shard glowed faintly, reflecting a version of her, taller, paler, with golden hair that shimmered unnaturally. "She's here," the reflection said. "She never leaves." The glow pulsed, and suddenly Isabella's vision blurred. She swayed, clutching her temples. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. "Isabella," a familiar voice, Ethan's, whispered. "You have to fight it. Don't let her in." "I can't," she gasped. The golden-haired figure stepped forward from the shard. Her eyes were impossible, half mine, half someone else. The apartment seemed to stretch, walls bending as though alive. "You freed him," the voice hissed, "but now, I will take you instead." The lights flickered. The shard hovered midair, pulsing like a heartbeat. Every time Isabella tried to turn away, the figure followed. Mirrored movements, perfect precision. She screamed, stumbling backward. The shard split in two, then three, multiplying endlessly until her apartment was full of reflections, each one whispering her name, breathing her name, tempting her to join them. "You can't fight me," the voice said, now inside her mind as well. "I've lived inside the dress. I've lived inside him. Now I live in you." Isabella clutched her chest, her breath coming in short gasps. The fire from the dress had not destroyed Clara. It had merely dispersed her, latent, patient, waiting for another vessel. "Ethan," she cried, reaching for the shards. "Help me." A faint glow appeared from one tiny shard. Inside it, Ethan's face blinked. He was smiling, fragile but determined. "I'm still here," he whispered. "Hold on. Don't let her win. Love is stronger than magic." The shards flung themselves toward her in a violent wave. She ducked, slammed her eyes shut, and whispered, trembling, "I love you, Ethan. I won't let her take me." The shards collided with the floor and walls, shattering into pieces. The golden-haired reflection screamed, a sound that pierced her very bones. For a moment, all was still. Then silence. Isabella opened her eyes. The shards were gone. The room was quiet, but deep inside her, a faint heartbeat pulsed, not her own. "I'm still here." A shiver ran down her spine. She realized with horror. Clara might be gone from the dress, but she had found another way, another home. And that home was inside Isabella herself. The apartment had grown colder. Isabella's breath came out in ragged gasps, curling in the icy air. Every shadow seemed alive, stretching toward her, whispering her name. Every shard that had once reflected Clara's presence had vanished, replaced by an oppressive, unshakable silence. She knew she couldn't run anymore. Clara had made herself home inside Isabella now, like a parasite feeding on fear and hesitation. "I have to end this," Isabella whispered to herself, shaking. She gripped the smallest shard she had kept, the one with Ethan's face. Its glow was faint, fragile, but it pulsed like a heartbeat. "Ethan," she breathed, "guide me." And then it began. The room trembled violently. The lights flickered, then exploded into a blinding white, almost burning her eyes. Shadows twisted, forming into a tall, golden-haired figure, Clara herself, manifested in full, impossible glory. Her eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "You actually think you can stop me?" Clara's voice was everywhere at once, echoing off the walls and inside Isabella's skull. "I've lived in the dress, in him, and now I live in you. You cannot fight me." Isabella's hands shook, clutching the shard like a lifeline. She forced herself to kneel, whispering Ethan's name again. "I love him," she said, voice trembling. "And that love is stronger than you." Clara laughed, sharp and cruel, and stepped closer. With each step, the temperature dropped further, frost forming on the wooden floor.
Love.
Clara sneered. "Love cannot undo centuries of craft, of magic. I am eternal. I will consume what I want, and this time it's you." Isabella's heart pounded. Fear clawed at her chest, but she steadied her breath, focusing on the faint glow of Ethan's shard. "Ethan," she whispered.
Please.
A soft, faint voice echoed back. "I'm here. Trust me. You can do this." The golden figure lunged, moving impossibly fast. Isabella ducked, rolling across the floor, shards of broken glass scattering. The room itself seemed alive, walls bending and stretching, floors rippling beneath her feet. "Give up," Clara hissed. "It's hopeless." Isabella stood, lifting the shard high. It flared brightly, blinding, like a miniature sun. "I won't give up," she screamed. The shard's light grew, forcing Clara back. Her form flickered, unstable. "Impossible. You cannot wield this power." Clara screeched. Isabella realized what she had to do. She had to merge the shard with her own heart, accept the magic, not fight it, but channel it with love instead of fear. "Ethan," she called. "Come to me. I need you." The shard pulsed violently, and suddenly, she felt him, his presence, faint but undeniable, connecting with her heartbeat. She closed her eyes, focusing on him, on their memories, laughing by the lake, their first kiss, the silly breakfast fights, the promises they had whispered in the dark. Her body glowed faintly, the shard melting into her chest. Light erupted, filling the room. Clara screamed, her golden hair whipping around like a storm, the shadows she commanded scattering like leaves in a hurricane. "No, you cannot take him from me," Clara roared. "He's mine," Isabella shouted. The shard, now fully merged with Isabella, burned brightly, and with a final scream, Clara's form shattered into thousands of tiny sparks, scattering across the room and fading into nothing. The air stilled.
Silence.
Isabella dropped to her knees, trembling. The glow faded, leaving the apartment in darkness once more. She was exhausted. Every muscle in her body ached, every emotion raw, but she was free. Then, from somewhere faint and warm, she heard it. "Bella." Ethan's voice. She turned, heart hammering. On the floor lay the charred remnants of the dress, and beside it, a faint, fragile shimmer of light. Ethan's form began to coalesce, pale but solid, blinking and breathing. I'm here," he whispered. She ran to him, tears streaming, falling to her knees beside him. He smiled faintly, reaching for her hand. You saved me," he said, voice cracking. "No," she sobbed, clutching him. "We saved each other." For the first time in days, Isabella allowed herself to breathe. The oppressive presence was gone. The apartment was still. The shadows were still. The whispers gone. Ethan pulled her into a tight embrace. "I was so scared," he murmured. "I know," she whispered back. "I know. But it's over now." And for the first time, the scent of lavender lingered, not as a curse, not as a threat, but as a memory of everything they had endured. But as Isabella rested her forehead against his chest, she couldn't shake the faint, lingering glow in the corner of the room. "It's over, isn't it?" she whispered. The shard of glass twinkled faintly, almost teasing, before fading completely. A shiver ran down her spine. Maybe it really was over. Or maybe Clara wasn't finished yet. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan sat on the couch, still pale, still trembling from the ordeal. His hands clutched his knees as if holding himself together. Isabella stood near the window, watching the city lights blink faintly in the distance, the shadows stretching long across the walls. It had been hours since Clara's presence had been destroyed, or so they thought. "It feels empty," Ethan whispered, voice barely audible. "Empty isn't the right word," Isabella replied, turning to him. Her eyes were tired but sharp, scanning every corner. "It feels like the calm before something else. Something we don't see yet." He shivered. I thought I was free." "You are," she said, though her voice carried doubt. But then she noticed it. A single shard of glass lying in the corner of the living room, faintly glowing. She froze. Ethan followed her gaze. "No." Isabella bent down slowly, heart hammering. The shard seemed ordinary, but a soft, almost inaudible whisper came from it. "Bella." She jumped back. The hairs on her neck stood on end. "It's nothing," she said quickly, trying to sound brave. "It's just the residue, the last magic or something." Ethan shook his head. "Magic doesn't leave behind whispers. She's still here." The lights flickered. A soft, almost invisible breeze swept through the apartment, though all windows were closed. The scent of lavender returned, subtle, sweet, and haunting. "She's taunting us," Isabella said, her voice trembling. "Testing us. Seeing if we're strong enough to move on." Ethan reached for her hand. His touch was grounding, but even that comfort felt fragile.
"We need to leave," he said. "Just for a little while. Get air.
Remind ourselves what's real." Isabella nodded, though she didn't move. Something inside her resisted leaving the apartment. The shard flickered again, almost like a heartbeat, calling to her. "She'll come back," Ethan said softly, noticing her hesitation. "Clara, she doesn't disappear that easily." "I know," Isabella whispered. "And yet, I can't stop looking at that shard." She felt it calling her, pulling her closer. Fear battled curiosity, dread battled the strange, seductive allure of the magic they had survived. The room felt smaller, tighter, as though it were breathing. Every shadow stretched, folded, and twisted, mimicking the shapes of the past 3 days. "Isabella," Ethan said nervously. "Please don't." But she couldn't turn away. Her fingers itched to touch the shard.
To see.
To understand. The whisper came again, faint but clear. "You can't escape me." Ethan's grip tightened on her wrist. "Isabella, step away." She flinched but stayed rooted. Her eyes locked on the glowing fragment. She could see it, the faint silhouette of Clara, delicate, haunting, watching them, smiling. "I thought you were gone," Isabella whispered. "So did you," the whisper replied, soft and intimate. "But you can't kill what wants to live forever." The apartment went silent again. The shard stopped glowing, yet the air felt heavy, dense, like Clara's presence had seeped into the very walls. Isabella finally stepped back, shaking. Her hands were trembling, sweat beading her forehead. We survived," Ethan said cautiously, his voice tentative. "Survived?" she echoed, looking at the shard once more. "I don't think she's gone. I think she's just waiting. Waiting for us to weaken. Waiting to return." The shard flickered faintly one last time. And in its glow, for just a second, Isabella could swear she saw Ethan's face, or maybe Clara's, smiling back at her, almost lovingly. "We can't trust silence," she said, voice hardening. "We'll never be completely free. Not from her. Not from the magic. And not from what we did to survive." Ethan nodded, but his eyes were wide, haunted. The weight of what they had endured pressed down on them like stone. And then, as if on cue, the shard of glass slid silently across the floor toward Isabella. "Bella," the whisper came again, soft, intimate, terrifying. Soon, she jumped back, heart pounding. One thing was certain, the magic had left a scar. Something eternal. Something patient. And Clara was still alive. The apartment seemed ordinary now. Ethan and Isabella had spent the day cleaning, trying to remove every trace of the dress, the shards, the magic. Sunlight spilled through the windows, painting the walls in a warm glow. For a moment, the terror of the past week seemed like a nightmare fading at dawn. Maybe it's finally over, Ethan said, rubbing his eyes, trying to convince himself. Isabella nodded, though unease churned deep inside her. She couldn't shake the lingering sensation that something was watching. They had moved the last shard into a locked box, shoved into the deepest corner of the closet. A small comfort, at least. "We should go out," she suggested. "Get some fresh air. Pretend life is normal again." Ethan smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, pretend." They stepped outside, the city alive with light and noise, and for a few hours, it felt like the world had resumed its rhythm. But when they returned, the apartment was different. At first, Isabella thought it was just her imagination. Shadows were slightly off, objects slightly shifted. A picture frame leaning where it had never been. The scent of lavender faint, almost imperceptible, hanging in the air. Then she saw it. The mirror shard they had locked away in the closet was lying on the kitchen counter. Ethan froze. "We locked it," he whispered. Isabella's pulse spiked. She stepped closer. The shard was glowing faintly, not bright, not threatening, but alive. "It can't be," she breathed. And then the whisper came. "You thought you could contain me?" Isabella's blood ran cold. The voice wasn't angry, not playful, but it carried a weight that made her knees go weak. "Clara," Ethan whispered. "Not just Clara," the shard said. "And not just her.
Me.
Him.
Him.
All who lived in the dress. All who survived. I am everywhere." The shard tilted slightly, as though looking at them, and for the briefest second, Isabella could swear the reflection inside it was smiling, a smile that was half Ethan, half Clara, and something she couldn't name. What do you want?" Isabella asked, voice trembling. "I want only what I always wanted," the shard whispered. "To be seen, to be free, to be loved in my own way." Ethan grabbed her hand, but it did nothing to calm the terror curling inside her. The shard pulsed. The faint lavender scent grew stronger. Then, impossibly, it began to rise, not like before, but floating, shifting, forming shapes in midair. "Bella," Ethan had said. "Play the game again?" Isabella's eyes widened. The shard was no longer a shard. It was something else, something growing, expanding, a presence that felt alive, hungry, patient. We thought we ended this," Ethan said, voice small. "You thought wrong," the whisper said. "This is just the beginning." And in that instant, the shard's glow exploded, casting the entire apartment in blinding light. When Isabella and Ethan opened their eyes, the dress was back. Not charred, not burned, shimmering, perfect, and lying on the floor as if it had never been touched by fire. The whisper lingered in the air. "Shall we start over?" Isabella and Ethan stared at it, frozen, heartbeats echoing in terror and disbelief. Because one thing was terrifyingly certain: Clara was never gone. And the game had only just begun. The apartment was silent, but silence had a weight now, oppressive, almost tangible. Isabella and Ethan sat together on the couch, bodies exhausted, minds frayed, hearts still pounding. Their hands intertwined, but each felt the faint tremor of unease, the awareness that something wasn't over. "Do you think it's really gone?" Ethan asked, voice barely a whisper. Isabella shook her head slowly. "No, I don't think it ever goes. Not magic like that. Not Clara." The faint lavender scent lingered, teasing them, curling around their senses like a subtle warning. The apartment seemed ordinary, yet every shadow, every flicker of light, felt deliberate. A reminder that they were being watched. Isabella's gaze fell on the corner where the shard had rested, now just an empty space. But the memory of the glowing figure haunted her. Her chest tightened. "We survived, Ethan," she said, trying to convince herself as much as him. "But maybe surviving isn't the same as being safe." He nodded, still holding her hand. Yeah, but at least we're together. That counts for something. For a moment, calm returned. The city hummed outside the window. The light of dusk painted the room in soft orange and pink hues. Everything seemed peaceful. Then the faintest noise caught Isabella's attention, a soft, almost imperceptible rustle, like silk sliding across the floor. She froze. Ethan followed her gaze.
The dress.
It lay neatly folded on the chair, perfectly pristine, shimmering as if it had never been burned. Not a single ash or mark. How? Ethan whispered. It's not just the dress, Isabella said, her voice trembling. It's her.
Clara.
She's still here. Somehow. The air thickened, almost pressing against them. The temperature dropped slightly, and the faint glow of lavender returned, soft, almost seductive. A whisper, impossibly soft, echoed through the room. Shall we play again? Isabella's pulse spiked. She wanted to run, to throw the dress into the fire again, but something deep inside her froze. The dress wasn't just fabric anymore. It was a presence, alive, patient, waiting. We'll be careful, Ethan said, squeezing her hand. We'll figure this out together. Isabella nodded, but her eyes never left the dress. Her stomach knotted. Something told her that surviving wasn't the end, that the game wasn't over. And then, the softest movement, a shadow shifting just beyond the corner of her eye. Not quite human, not quite Clara, but undeniably alive. The whisper came again, closer this time. Soon, very soon. Isabella's breath caught. Ethan tightened his grip, but even together, they couldn't shake the feeling that the night was far from over. That the magic, the dress, and Clara's presence had not only survived, but were waiting, patient, unstoppable. As the camera would pan back in a YouTube video, the room would appear calm, but the faint shimmer of the dress would glow, just enough to let viewers know the terror, the magic, and the suspense are far from finished. The screen would cut to black. A single line of text appears. Some games never end, and the faint sound of silk sliding across the floor echoes one last time.